Talk about promises. Promises are very serious things. If you think about what a promise should be, actually, a promise is a sign of trust. In other words, you trust yourself when you make a promise. Also, when you promise other people and take an oath, other people trust you. A promise is also a sign of commitment, that you're willing to commit to something, whatever that is. That's when you make the promise. Also, promise takes a lot of courage, because if you make a real promise, you know that you're going to stand by something. And you're not supposed to make a promise when the promise is easy. So some people are willing to make easier promises, but not the difficult one. So the real meaning of a promise is that if you're going to make it, you make it, whether it's an easy one or a difficult one. The other thing is, you're working or you're living in a world where most people are breaking promises. So your ego says at some point, if nobody's keeping a promise, then I would be an idiot to keep mine. But that's not the way it goes. A promise is between you, your soul, and your God. So when you make a promise, it's a sign of your integrity, the fact that you're trustable, and you're courageous enough to be able to make the promise. Who do we make promises to? Let's start with God and the soul. The promise you make to your soul and your God is that you forget the idea of separation. It is impossible for the creation to be separate from the force that created it. It's like saying the tree is separate from the seed that we planted in the soil. That's impossible. The tree came from the seed, so it can't be separate. You can't go to an art gallery and say that the painting is separate from the painter. The painter's soul is in the painting. So when you make promises to God, the first promise you make is not to break God's heart. The best way to break the heart of God is to assume separation. Ego does that. Ego always feels lonely, separated, and secluded from the main force. That's the characteristic of ego. Every day when you feel extremely lonely or insecure, be sure that your ego ingredient is higher than other days when you feel at one with people, you talk to people in the subway, you have this feeling of oneness, you're more secure within yourself. That's a soul feeling. Whenever you're feeling grounded, very at ease with other people, can talk to crowds easily, you're not feeling insecure and lonely, that means your soul ingredient is higher. Because soul just assumes oneness. So your promise to God is that I breathe the Spirit in me, and with the exhalation, I allow thy will to be done in my life. That's your promise to God. It's about the deepest promise you can make to God. Let's talk about promise to the self. Promise to the self. The biggest promise you can make to yourself is that your highest religion becomes self-love. You accept yourself unconditionally. You don't see a flaw or shame within yourself. You promise to follow your dharma, which means you keep looking until you find the life direction, the life purpose, and the activity that suits your talents, your nature, something that arouses energy in you, something that arouses passion in you. Many millions of people are working just for rent. That doesn't work in the long term. There's got to be something that feels very loving and passionate to your heart and soul. Something. You have to keep looking. Even if you don't have it within your working hours, find it within your private hours. You've got to find your dharma. That's a promise you make to yourself. So unconditional love as the religion. Loving yourself, that's the religion. Also, you promise yourself to identify a liar in your mind. Every human mind has a liar in it. I'm not good enough, I'm not educated enough, I'm too lonely, nobody in our family has ever made money. This is the liar. You must identify the liar in your mind. The liar is very close to your skin. So you have to be a real master to hear a false voice in your own mind. Some people take years to get to that level of subtlety. They hear a voice in their own mind and they realize, oh my God, there is an actual liar living in my skull. And I have to take on the task of disbelieving the liar in my mind. Sometimes that liar is so subtle, like some of your oldest beliefs, negative beliefs, they are so close to your bone marrow that that liar winds up making you very insecure. And although you know this science, you've listened to this talk, you still become extremely scared when that liar starts broadcasting its lies in your head. You just have to be courageous, and you have to believe that in that one area of life, you have a liar speaking to you. Let's say you're a hypochondriac, so you believe that you're always sick, or you have money insecurities, or you feel unattractive. Whatever your main issue is, you have to promise yourself to hear that broadcast as a lie and do the opposite. Say to yourself, even if it kills me, if I need to die, I will die in the line of acting in a direction opposite to what the liar is telling me. So the hypochondriac says, even if I'm going to die, I'm going to disbelieve in the message of illness, psychosomatic diseases, so forth. Also, promises to yourself. You promise to yourself that you will not do self-sabotage. Take a small notebook, put it in your back pocket, and see what is your longest winning streak. Winning streak means how many days have I gone without sabotaging myself even once. It'll actually challenge you. Like write down Wednesday, July 11th. I spent all day constructively, did not sabotage myself. You wake up the next day, the liar is in your mind. The liar is already giving you false messages. So July 12th, you say, between morning and noontime, I have not sabotaged myself. And see if you can get that to evening time. And then next morning when you wake up, you say, July 13th, for 2 days in a row, I have not sabotaged myself with cigarettes, self-defeating ideas, I have not broken up with my girlfriend, I have not made a stupid investment, whatever. All the things that you know are self-sabotage. Sleeping until noon, whatever. You know what your form of self-sabotage is. See if you can go on 3 days without any self-sabotage. This notebook is a very valuable notebook. On the cover of it, write winning streak. It means how many days have I gone without believing the liar and without sabotaging myself. When you feel the pull of the liar, pull away. If you're mindful, you'll be able to do it. So these are promises you make to yourself. What are promises you make to your mate? If you're a very decent fellow or woman, when you go forward with a relationship, you show yourself to somebody. So let's say I'm 19 and I want to go out with somebody. I say, look, this is who I am, even at 19. You are now seeing the guy you're going to be dating. I am not going to change colors. This is the guy you're dating. So like it or not, here I am. You see? So the greatest promise you can make to your date or your mate, say, this is me, this is who I am. There's no changing colors. See, this stuff makes you laugh because in a big city with a huge dating scene, nobody's showing anything to anybody. So you would feel like an idiot, but do it anyways. because you can sleep better at night. You sleep better at night when you know who you are. Present yourself to somebody. Say, this is who I am. Other promises to your mate. Say, once I accept you, I'm going to nourish you, I'm going to comfort you, I'm going to hold you when you need me. In other words, you don't suddenly slip out from under their feet. That's a promise to your mate. Also, really, if you want to be realistic, a promise to a mate is long term. People who go forward with the idea of a one-year marriage, why even call it that? It's not. I mean, a commitment to a mate is the word we instead of two I's. If you're in a relationship as I and I, that's not a relationship. You might be having fun with each other, but the word we constitutes relationship. Two I's is not a relationship. So greatest promise you can make to your mate, just show yourself and say, this is me, I'm not changing colors. Once I take you on, I'm going to comfort you, nourish you, and hold you. In other words, you can trust on my being there for you. Promises to society. You promise to society that you're going to leave your mark on society. You might not feel like you're a terribly famous or important person. It doesn't matter. You make a promise to society that you were put here because a huge force wants you to be in the society. Because that force wants you to be here, then you leave a mark, leave some sort of a mark. Also, every time you learn something, promise society to awaken their mind. You don't have to become a pastor and lecture people, but if you find something solid about life, promise society that you will awaken a few more minds in society. The other promise you make to society is that you find your life calling. When you find your life calling, you're going to have a lot of energy and you're going to be uplifted. When you're uplifted, you uplift a lot of other people. That business of finding your calling is very, very serious stuff. I know how difficult it is when 90% of the world is working 9-to-5 jobs, just paying rent. But yoga takes Dharma very seriously. Dharma does not have to be a job. It could be adopting a child. It's something very, very meaningful to you that gives you tons of energy. It is not necessarily on your resume. So really, to be a responsible person in society, you have to find your calling somewhere in life. That way you get to uplift really hundreds of other people throughout a lifetime. We'll have other talks. God bless, and stick to your promises. They're quite serious.